If you were in another world, would you want to enjoy every moment of your life? We see the main character sitting at his PC, wearing a red armband and a black shirt, and he appears to be streaming. He talks about how he wouldn't recommend streaming to anyone, but doesn't say why. Our hero is in Ataraxia, Kingdom of Logia's Systal Academy. He goes home from class, and when he gets home, he puts on his blindfold, hangs up his uniform, and gets ready streaming. He greets the crowd with his nickname Haishin. He decides to chat and discuss the problems of his listeners. The first message is from an Acto, a B-ranked adventurer. He tells of a man who joined his group, but turned out to be useless, as all he could do was search for enemies, maintain weapons and cast spells, so he banished him. Haishin thinks he's an idiot, which he boldly states. He explains that searching for enemies can prevent monsters from appearing, and taking care of weapons can save money. He thinks that's enough. If you think you're a god or a king, my advice to you is that a commander who can't give a proper assessment should leave. You know, once you've killed the whole group, it's too late to change anything, Haishin exclaims. His audience agrees with him. In any case, Haishin does not want to harm the group commander, he just wants him to live longer. The next listener to approach Haishin was the son of a high-ranking nobleman who had a fiancée. He had recently taken a liking to a beautiful exchange student and wanted to leave his wife. Haishin shouted that he would die and give his fiancée to him. It makes him think about his family, that his engagement should not be taken lightly. It makes him think that looks aren't the most important thing about a person, that their looks don't define who they are. The commentators say they don't know the whole situation and advise Haishin to find out, but Haishin closes his eyes and says he should try to get to know her better. He says he'd like a girlfriend too, then says goodbye and turns off the stream. He says he didn't think the streamers he saw in his past life would have such an effect on him and that he would become like them. Haishin has been reborn into this world. The next day, we're introduced to the professor who teaches Haishin's class. He begins to reflect on what happened after his reincarnation. At first, he was excited about the magic in this world, but now he's just taking it for granted. After all, he now has a large reserve of mana, and this is where the story begins that his real name is Kanata and Haishin is just an alias. Quickly realized that this power would not allow him to live a normal life like a normal person. He decided to take the magic test, but he obtained the S rank by restraining his power. In this world, only rich nobles or talented commoners can have a high rank and pass this test. Nobles don't like commoners, despite the school's attempts. The discrimination against the commoners remains, so the commoners must be polite. After being bullied by the nobles, he smirkingly tells them to go to the teachers. The nobleman starts bullying him even more, and the nobleman also ignores the teacher's remarks. But then a girl, Maria Ataraxia, apologizes for being late. As a result, the boys fall behind Kanata. The teacher immediately forgives her for mentioning home, where she has many worries. Maria thanks the teacher for her understanding. They start a demonstration and one of the nobles rushes forward, clearly underestimating Kanata, thinking he's only S rank. He needs to hit a target with low-level magic, so he aims at the target and fires a shot. The shot hits the target accurately. Next is Kanata, who prepares to fire a shot but miscalculates the power and releases a huge fireball that destroys the target. Maria and the students look on in shock. The teacher thanks him for his excellent demonstration and shows what's left of the target. The nobles decide that he has cheated and call for magic to make the shot. Mary approached them and called out to them, asking them to forget their pride. Mary says that it doesn't matter if a student is a commoner or an aristocrat. She smashes the tree and asks the nobles to stop talking nonsense. They agree and bow their heads, then approach Kanata and say that his magic is amazing. We learn from Kanata's thoughts that this is royalty, the third princess, Lady Mary. The people stare at him. She says to heed the princess's words. Kanata interjects. She remains silent, but then says that even if the nobles are annoying, one should not provoke them. Kanata replies that he doesn't care about the nobles. At this point, we see one of the students watching him from behind a tree. Kanata returns home, turns on the stream and greets the audience. He starts talking about his PC and how he made it himself. He was given a normal terminal when he enrolled, but with some research, he turned it into a computer. This world has terminal communication, but using his limitless power, Kanata was able to create a fake internet platform. If anyone tried to do this, they would run out of mana in a matter of minutes. He begins to tell the audience that the aristocrats have once again bullied the commoners. The conflicts still haven't gone away. He reads the audience's reactions that the status difference will not just go away. He says that people can't live in peace. Suddenly he receives a colored comment or a donation. The sender is an unnamed princess. She greets him and says she's glad to hear his voice again. She says this is her way of saying thank you. She sends him 10 gold coins. He thanks her, but is confused when he realizes that she sends him these every day. Kanata asks her if she steals money from her parents. The princess reassures him by telling him that the money is hers. She also says that if he really wants to feel what it's like to have a girlfriend, she'd be happy to help. He says he won't meet anyone or he'll be found out quickly. He thanks the princess, but says if there's a chance, why not? We learn that the mysterious princess is Maria. She's crazy about Kanata without realizing it. She believes him to be an extraordinary man who has broken into Ataraxia. His words have shown the way to many people. He is confident and not afraid to take responsibility. She's mad about him. She listens to his voice. She's obsessed with him. As you can imagine, in this world, Haishin has a lot of crazy fans, and in the future, these feelings will only grow. Without thinking, Kanata said he wanted to meet her. At that moment, he had no idea what this would lead to. In this world, Kanata is the only and most popular streamer. His nickname is Haishin, but his activities have spawned a real cult made up of Yandere. Our hero is finally free, and he has decided to take the road where there are fewer people. After this incident, the people around him started to annoy him even more. They think that Kanata cheated in the exam, but even though the nobles annoy him, he can always relax by streaming. Kanata accidentally overhears a student declare his love for Princess Maria, but she rejects him. Kanata looks over and recognizes the student as the rich boy. The boy asks Maria why she has rejected him, and Maria replies that she already has someone to whom she wants to devote herself, meaning Haishin, or Kanata. The nobleman cries and runs away, wishing Maria and his mysterious lover happiness. Kanata notices that Maria is his type. He likes girls with big eyes. He decides to go another way, but suddenly Maria calls him over. She says it's not good to eavesdrop, and that she noticed him right away. Kanata immediately tries to justify himself, but Maria starts laughing. Maria says she's just kidding and Kanata thanks her for understanding, then runs off. Maria thinks she's heard that accent before, clearly alluding to Haishin. Kanata comes home and starts the broadcast. Maria is there and she starts going crazy again. She is so much in love with Haishin that she quickly gets out of the elegant lady persona. She hears the notification and realizes that someone has decided to support Haishin. She literally tells herself not to screw up. Donut contains the idea that the human race should be destroyed, but Haishin doesn't understand those who say that, and he hopes they can live in peace. Many say that demons are cruel, but there are plenty of bad people too. You've all heard of slavery and discrimination, right? The next events begin when Mary is told to stop near an unknown building. She gets out of the carriage and enters the building. It turns out to be a slave market. She asks the clerk, Sebastian, what it is. Sebastian answers as it is and says it is a slave market. Maria thinks it's a relic of the past. She asks Seabass if it can be stopped. Seabass replies that slavery is profitable for the higher-ups and the law is very difficult to change. Maria doesn't understand what they should do then. Seabass says there is a man who can help them find the right way. He hands her a phone with a Haishin stream on it. Maria wants to believe that this is the person who can solve this problem. Maria sends a donation to help abolish the slave market and introduces herself as the nameless princess. Haishin is surprised and says he didn't know slavery existed in this country. Haishin thinks that slavery has been abolished and that Haishin is against taking away people's freedom. Haishin makes a competent speech about how he has no power to change the law, but if the nameless princess really is a princess, she should make the first move. Haishin is sure that she can save many lives of slaves who are being mistreated. He looks forward to reforms that will improve their lives. Mary orders Sebastian to prepare a carriage, motivated to take personal control of the situation. Slavery was completely abolished and a strict prohibition was enforced. The suffering of the slaves stopped. She decided to fight discrimination and became a mediator between the commoners and the nobility. Maria looks at her phone and sees messages from his female fans. She speaks rudely and tells them to take their place by sending a donation to Haishin with the message that she is more suitable for him than they are. Haishin reacts negatively, but Maria takes it the wrong way and starts to cry. Maria thinks that Haishin hates her. Haishin says that if the audience understands, he will forgive them. Haishin says that getting along with demons is a good thing. Haishin says he wonders what a demon lord looks like and wonders if anyone has seen one. The audience are shocked, drop their phones and ask him not to bring it up. He would like to see a world where humans and demons can live in peace. One of the listeners says that he is a really interesting guy and that he tries to think positively. Kanata didn't even realize that he had touched on the forbidden subject of this world. A few months before Kanata's announcement, an unknown demon was torturing people, causing spatial chaos. The demon grinned and said that this magic was beyond SSS level. They didn't stand a chance. Demons and humans have been fighting for years. The unknown demon wondered, what's the point if they still can't come to a compromise? The unknown demoness is called Shros. The demons glorify her and consider her the ideal of beauty. Shros hopes that common sense will prevail and the conflict between humans and demons will finally end. Suddenly, Shros is beckoned by an unknown demoness who hands her a streaming phone that the adventurers dropped. Shros asks who haishinsha is, and the demoness replies that the adventurers used the phone to listen to haishinsha. But some waves do not reach the phone because they are literally very far away. Shros thinks about it and thinks that it could be useful for gathering information. Shros asks her to improve the waves and get the terminal. The demoness obeys and runs off to carry out the order. The demoness carries out the order and approaches Shros. Demoness asks Shros if she is satisfied. Shros says she is and it will help her pass the time. A few days later we see Shros sitting and listening to Haishin. Haishin asks what his listeners had for breakfast today. Shros types that she ate meat, had a lot of work to do in the morning, then she sends these messages. She doesn't think Haishin will say anything back. What was meant to pass the time has gradually crept into her life. He's become part of her everyday life. She doesn't understand who he is, and she realizes that Haishin is someone powerful, because it takes a huge amount of mana to make his voice heard by people in any direction. Judging by this, it's safe to say that Haishin's mana reserves are greater than Shri's. She realizes that he's an unusual guy, and she doesn't like it. She overhears Haishin wondering about the war between humans and demons, and realizes that he's wondering the same thing. Haishin expresses his opinion that instead of war, it would be nice if the leaders of both sides could meet and solve the problem peacefully. Shros sees him as a kindred spirit and sends him a large donation. The sound of the donation, Shros' happiest time. Shros also became a mad Yandere. Slavery, discrimination. Nameless princess interrupted Shros' donation. Nameless goddess writes that she also wants to get along with demons. Haishin wonders what a demon lord looks like. We go back in time to see Shros taking a shower, thinking about Haishin. Shros overheated in the bath and eventually had to get out. We see Shros' feelings manifest. She's thinking about how she wants to see him, to meet him, to see his face, to grab Haishin and hold him in her arms. She dreams of it, and apparently our Shros has fallen in love with Haishin. We see Shros open a portal to the human world. Shros goes in search of Haishin. She appears before the king, and first she decides just to make a truce with the king. We see all the citizens rejoice as news of the truce spreads throughout the city. Kanata even notices how famous he's become in places he didn't even know he was. We see Haishin repairing his PC. He's going to check on it tonight and due to hunger, sends her out to eat. We see a girl who is walking around the city and is about to take a bite of her food. She opens her mouth and, unfortunately, she fails to take a bite and crashes into a man. The man appears to be a typical bull, and he insults the stranger for crashing into him. He tries to make her pay. The bully puts his hand on the girl's shoulder, putting the stranger under high pressure. Haishin doesn't see any guards around and decides to get into a fight, saying that although he doesn't like this sort of thing, he can't leave this lady. He calls out to the bull, saying that he's way too broad. Haishin provokes the bull. The bull asks what Haishin wants. The latter, charging his ability, asks to let the girl go and sharply kicks the bull. The bull rushes off saying he has a job to do. He didn't even apologize. The girl removes her hood. Underneath is a beautiful white-haired girl. She says that Haishin's voice is familiar to her. Haishin reasons and assumes she is his listener. He even considers revealing himself to hook up with her. He suggests the girl go back before she gets into trouble again, but the girl says she could have fought back on her own, just afraid she might seriously injure this rebel. The girl says that she appreciated Haishin's kindness and thanks him. Haishin compliments the beautiful girl, but she reacts strangely, saying that there are prettier girls than her. The girl notices a scar on Haishin's arm and asks where it came from. Haishin replies that he hurt himself while cleaning. The girl asks that Haishin be more careful in the future. Haishin flies. He puts his hand on the mystery girl's head, but the girl is shy and pulls away from him. Haishin thought she was a child, but it turns out they're the same age. It's just that the stranger's height is rather short. The stranger says she's used to being mistaken for a child. The stranger gets into an interesting pose with a very big cross, and smiles snidely at the protagonist. Haishin gets all red. The girl declares that she knows how to get into adult grooves. Haishin says he understood, but thought it was no big deal. Haishin says goodbye to her. He thinks she is studying to be a nun. He doesn't give it much thought and goes home. The nun goes to her church. The minister of the church talks about rumors that the nun is in trouble. We learn that her nickname is the Saint and that if they knew who she was, this would not have happened. The church minister says that the saint is the key to negotiations between the countries. The nun says that people should not be divided into superior and inferior, and that by eradicating sin they should not hate mankind. The minister thanks the saint for her mercy. She reasons that the walk was not so bad, that she met a kind man who had a voice quite similar to the. She interrupts the thought and pulls her phone out of her bag, turns on the recording, and her Yandere nature comes out. There are several reasons why she is mad, but really she just likes Haitian's voice. Saint is always so calm, the minister of the church declares, and the fact that the minister admires her. The saint declares that she every day cleans every corner of her body. She undresses and declares that one day she could belong only to him. She hears Haitian's voice and her lower abdomen begins to tremble. Could she be pregnant by him? She hears what Haishin decides to say before continuing, and he turns on the camera, saying that now all the audience can see his hands. Saint realizes that this guy is the one who saved her. She thinks it's a stupid joke. She realized who it was. The camera shows his hands. He was hinting at this magic device this morning. He was adding it to his computer. Haishin thinks he should have worn gloves, but he decides no one can identify him by his hands. We see our Yandere are particularly worried about him, and so are the chats. He talks about how he decided to demonstrate a new device. In the future he will use the camera to show different things. After 2 hours, Haishin realizes that the camera has helped to make the stream particularly fun. He sees a threatening donation from one Mantis, a local authority figure, head of the Gilms gang. They're going to kill him. Mantis tries to humiliate him, telling him to run to his cot and shiver in fear. Haishin sends him away with the finger. He thinks it's just jealousy, or he's just annoyed by the fact that he exists. Haishin hides his identity, but he makes a lot of money. He asks not to be threatened, even if it's just idle chatter. No need to threaten him on the air. The bandits didn't know that, and now our Yandere are ready to kick some ass. We see unknown men break into the bandits' lair and take out the main bandits' crew. The main bandit, the Mantis, tries to escape, but Mantis has part of his leg abruptly severed. We see a knight approach, saying that the authority figure was just a mere husk. We see the saint came along with the knight. She is smirking. Is she enjoying the process? Meanwhile, the demons were also going to help at the order of the mistress, but the humans had already handled everything. Mantis asks who they all are, to which they reply that they are Haishinayu's mediator. They taunt him, showing him that he clearly could not have defeated him. The saint ends the trial by killing the poor devotee. A few days later, we see the students reading the news that the kingdom's knightly order has successfully eliminated the notorious bandit Mantis. Haishin recalls the name, but can't remember who it is. Haishin notices that he is being ignored by everyone, even the commoners are ignoring him. He draws this conclusion from the ignoring of one of the students. The teacher notifies the students that a new student has arrived, and the author begins to introduce her to us. We are told that she is an indispensable part of our kingdom, with close ties to the monarch's family. The teacher asks not to be rude to her, and the saint is introduced. Her name is Alfana, and the fact that she was already made a saint at a young age. There is a commotion in the school. Everyone wants to see the saint from the SSS class. Rumors spread very quickly. Everyone sees her and is quite surprised. One of the students asks why she decided to transfer, to which she replies that she has an interesting goal. Meanwhile, Haishin is having an inner monologue with himself. He read about her as a child. The saint appears once every few decades. A girl of suitable character and magical ability is chosen for the position. The saint holds the power of the church and is active in the diplomatic arena. In other words, she's one of the most important figures in the country, and she's also friends with Mary. She should be in the SSS class because her magical power is so great. He remembers stroking her hand, and he's very glad she didn't take it as an insult. We see one of the boys from the SSS class come to meet him. He introduces himself as Vector, the second son of the Ronder family. He points out that Mrs. Maria did not show up for the lectures when she was on duty. Vector offers to give a tour of the school, addressing Alfana by name. She gets angry with him, pointing out that she has not yet authorized him to call her by her first name. The action shifts to the practice range. Mary uses a water scythe and chops up a target. Everyone marvels at the saint's strength, everyone wonders what she forgot in S class. They think of ways to make a good impression on her. Next on the list is Kanata. Alfana wishes him luck, calling him a good man. He is surprised and motivated because Alfana herself wished him good luck. He is happy that a beautiful girl wished him good luck, and he decides to set a good example. He tries not to overdo it, uses a water scythe and spruces up the target. Society scoffs, saying that this dirty commoner is as confident as ever, confident but capable of nothing. Alfana, hearing this, pulls out her cross, saying that she didn't expect the aristocrats of this academy to really humiliate commoners. Alfana points the cross at the students, pretending to cast them out. Haishin is pleased to see them scolded, but they hate him even more because of these situations with the princess and the saint. During his lunch break, he states that he never got to have a proper conversation with her, but he remembers his listeners. He decides to come up with a greeting for the stream and talks to himself. He mumbles out the greetings, but then once again the saint sees it, and I think she's getting the hang of it. Haishin asks what Alfana is doing next to him. She states that she decided to look around the academy a bit, while giggling snidely. Alfana tells Haishin that they have met again, calling him a kind man. Haishin remembers that it's the same young lady. Alfana is angry with him. She doesn't like being called that. She asks him to call her as before, not to use these formalities. Haishin wants to run away, because he's alone with the saint and someone will see them. The saint grabs his hand and asks for permission to call Haishin by his name. She sits down in a nice pose and asks him to honor that request. He calls her by her name and our girl reveals her nature. She gets goosebumps. She shows her nature and is happy that Haishin called her by her name. Does that mean he's given his consent to their marriage? Love is blind, as they say. Obsessive people tend to exaggerate every little thing. Haishin didn't notice anything. He had no way of knowing about the hidden desires that are inside her. Haishin walks into the classroom and sees that Alfana is already here. Maria from Triple S class walks in and asks for Alfana. She rubs her cheeks and asks why she didn't tell her anything. Haishin notices that they look like adults. Haishin is surprised at their poise. Even though they are in public, they continue the conversation. They respond to whoever speaks to them, but sometimes it looks unnatural. The way the alpha smiled yesterday, and that advice to Maria. Is that fake too? They're having fun, and Haishin is jealous of them. Haishin is a little sad to be alone, so he decides to make some friends and tries to start a dialogue by greeting one of the students and asking him what he had for dinner last night. He answers rudely, but the student thinks he's only learned how to do sorcery. Haishin decides to just take a nap, hoping his listeners will comfort him. Meanwhile, in the Empire of Zonard, unknown mansion, a strange aristocrat approaches a certain Raven with a new order. Raven asks who he is to kill, to which the aristocrat says not so fast. We see that the school is still discussing the Raven. Maria and Alfina hope that they are not affected, because the Raven does not usually touch people who are not vicious aristocrats. He was seen about 100 kilometers away. Haishin thinks it's a bird at first, but realizes it's an assassin. He gets information from his listeners. He thinks it's some kind of story, but it seems to be real. Haishin thinks it's none of his business and tends to doze off again. Events move back to the mansion. Raven asks what his purpose is, saying that unlike the aristocrat, he has no time for idle chatter. The aristocrat gets angry, but the Raven abruptly goes behind the aristocrat's back, saying that he will not repeat himself twice. The aristocrat is startled and falls down and names his target. It's Haishin. He influences the politics of an entire country, and because of his propaganda, slavery was abolished and now he is bankrupt because of it. The Raven refuses the money and abruptly rips the aristocrat's head off. We see the Raven land on the roof of a building. He rips off those uncomfortable clothes and underneath is a beautiful assassin. She says bastards like that should be killed right away. She looks at her phone and Haishin starts a stream. Apparently it's another one of his fans. His fan Yandere. Behind the mask of the legendary assassin is another Yandere listener. She listened to Haishin's speech, dreaming of him scolding her. Back to when Haishin complains about a classmate's behavior. He asks her to comfort him. We see all the Yandere fangirls. The assassin says that she would never hurt another human being. Remember that she robbed the head of an aristocrat. Princess Mary is angry at that man and writes an aggressive message. The Demon Queen talks about how patty heroes also start off with insults and then get cursed in the forehead. Alfana Saint thinks she's inattentive and blames herself for not even noticing it. He blurts out that it's a joke and shows a glass of water, saying it's an imitation of tears. But he mentions that he's not liked at the academy after all. He sees a message about how Haishin would like to punish the bully, The sender of the message is an assassin girl who is sitting on a rooftop listening to Haishin's stream. Haishin replies that instead of retaliating, he'd rather give him a second chance. Mad Yandere bares her sword and chops a wall. A bunch of skulls fall out of the wall. She says just give her name and she'll kill anyone. Haishin is thinking about how his listeners are such good people. The royal capital, the red light district. Kanna says goodbye to her darling and walks over to the owner. The owner praises her for a good job and talks about how he's already changed everything. This is the AS of an elite brothel, a mature glamour that drives men crazy. She states that she has achieved such results doing her job without any shame. The girl asks permission to leave, saying he knows why. The owner says he'd listen to him, but he still has work to do. The girl undresses. Bright red hair, blue eyes, seductive body with snow-white skin. She is already in her 20s, but every day her body seems to blossom. She is glad that a pleasant working day is over, and thanks Mr. Haishin for that. She waits for the broadcast, and when it starts she goes crazy too. Princess, demon lord, saint, murderer, and now courtesans are also among the believers. Haishin didn't count on this. She hears that Haishin is having difficulties too, and declares that if Mr. Haishin were around, she would use everything she could to heal him, because he has become the salvation for people like her. We are transported to the events of bygone days. We see that Kanna was born in a slum, and had nothing in common with her current environment. In order to survive, she first got a job in a bar, then became a prostitute, and then a courtesan. She sits in the bar with her colleagues and discusses that if they get older, they will obviously lose customers. Yandere declares she doesn't even want to think about it, and gets drunk. She changed places until she found a normal owner. It wasn't just the future they were worried about. She hears courtesans being judged, and clearly in a rude way. Prostitutes had a low social status and were treated like dirt. Yandere walks back and is greeted by the owner. He offers to listen to Haishin to forget the bad stuff, and states that the broadcast will start soon. Haishin argues with some viewer, and the entire brothel staff listens to him with a smile. Haishin brightens their days. What a good streamer he is. One of the listeners states that he saw something horrible in the street recently. Haishin asks what it was. The listener replies that a courtesan was cooing with a man. The listener says that such scum should not pollute the city. The brothel staff is very upset. They thought Haishin was of the same opinion, but he shouts that no one should listen to him. That's rubbish. He's saying it's stupid to judge people by their profession. He doesn't think this job is any worse than any other profession. He says that everyone needs to rethink their attitudes, because they work hard to keep tired customers happy. He would like to live in a world where they don't have to be ashamed of their profession. No one had ever said anything like this to the courtesans before. At this time tears were shed in the brothels, tears of happiness. The kingdom has once again changed its attitude towards courtesans thanks to Haishin. She thanks Haishin. We are transported to the current time, and we see Haishin talking about how he wanted to make friends with someone, but the first thing he was told was shut up. The owner knocks on the door, saying he forgot to say something, and the courtesan is ruggaging and pissed off about Haishin's situation. Other putanas who worship Haishin were just as outraged. The topic of who offended Haishin was discussed in all the brothels for a while. After a week, Haishin wanders around the city, starving, hoping to find fresh bread, as it is being sold out very quickly. He meets Princess Maria, and she greets him, asking if his name is Kanada. Haishin asks if she can walk alone in the street, to which Maria replies that it's all right, but they are already rushing into town, and everything seems to be out of order. Haishin is about to say goodbye to Maria, but she grabs his arm and presses her breasts against his chest. She offers him a walk. Haishin thinks that if they are seen, their school life will be hell. He wonders what to do, but Maria hears strange noises and asks Haishin if he can hear them. We see a familiar courtesan being hacked to death by some strange nobleman. Maria and Haishin's eyes cross, and they realize that the outing is cancelled. They prepare their attack and tell him to quickly remove his hands. These two just couldn't get past it. They ask the nobleman if they can see that she doesn't like it. The nobleman asks not to get in his way. The princess comes up and slaps the nobleman's hands, which he swings at and prepares to hit the princess. But from behind with his magic, Haishin throws the nobleman down. Exerting a powerful magical pressure, he shackles him to the ground, and because of this he cannot move. Maria thanks Haishin and asks him to hold him down, while she herself steps away on some business. The nobleman tries to argue with Haishin, saying that he will be very badly hurt for raising his hand against him. Meanwhile, the courtesan apologizes for the nobleman causing him so much trouble. He chastises the poor nobleman for discriminating against people for their occupation and pokes his finger into his lot. Meanwhile, the courtesan recognizes this manner of speech and voice. Suddenly Haishin hears a strange noise, and realizes it's the guards. The nobleman is pleased at this outcome. The nobleman is delighted and tries to order the guards to take Haishin for a generous reward. But Maria comes out and calls him an idiot. She says the brave student is protecting the girl from a perverted nobleman. That's how it is. The Jalian nobleman lunges at Maria, but is caught by the guards. The aristocrat doesn't understand what the royal guard is doing here, but it is explained to him that Maria is the third princess of the kingdom. The princess thanks Haishin for holding him off. Haishin is glad that everything ended well. Haishin remembers the courtesan, and she tells him that he saved her. She thanks him, taking his sore arm. Haishin reacts sharply and says that his arm hurts. The courtesan asks for Haishin's name. We finally learn that the courtesan's name is Kanna. She gives him a note that if he shows it to the brothel manager, he will be taken to her. Then she whispers to Haishin that she will serve him for free, after which she leaves happily. Maria is angry and pushes down on Haishin's shoulders, telling him that she is a rascal. Meanwhile, it is getting dark and Haishin is about to leave. He says goodnight to Maria and wishes her good night. Maria grabs Haishin and asks why he didn't offer to see her off. He replies that if anyone at the academy sees them together, it will be bad luck. Maria thinks she's mistaken, for Haishin would have escorted her, but she must have imagined it. We see the nobleman who was humiliated by Haishin seeking revenge. The offense will lead to another incident. That's where the second part of the streamer and the other has come to its end. If you like this short retelling, let's get 100 likes, and also write in the comments the word Yandere so that the second part came out as soon as possible. That's all for now. See you later and bye-bye.